Hi, I'm Andre Faust, and I'm a newbie in all of this. And of course, if you've been following my previous videos, you'll see where I started right from scratch. 5 months ago, I started out with the little Husband H107C. I spent about 4 months flying that sucker, crashing it, doing all kinds of horrible things that shouldn't happen to a drone. Yes, I was very, very, very hard onto it. But there were some challenges that I had to learn. And the first one was to fly by sight. Of course, these little, quads, 299 grams is all they weighed. So it can fit in the side of my hand. I thought I had it with me here to show you how small this little sucker is. But they're only a $50 drone. They have no technologies. They have a little bit of gyro synchronization, but that's about it. No altitude hold, no GPS hold, no return home, no first person view. So they're very primitive. You have to, you know, fly them away from you, bring them back to you, which everything is always backwards and upside down. What a head fuck that is. And, take them to the right, take them to the left. And like I say, I have, it's taken me 3 drones. My first one, up against the side of a building, completely obliterated, gone, finished, gone to the drone graveyard. Yeah, may it rest in peace. My second one was an error on my part. I was trying to push the limits, and of course it was a 25-kilometer wind, and these little drones are not designed for 25-kilometer winds. Anyway, I was playing around, flying up around, resisting the wind, saying, I'm doing pretty good with this little drone. So I punched it up higher. I got it up to about 100 feet. I lost control with my controller. The 25-kilometer wind took it, and that's traveling at about 22 feet per second, right? Phew, gone. I've got a pretty good idea. I'm there watching where it's going. I know it's caught up in one of these. There's a hedge of 30-foot white pines, and that's where it is, up on top of that, and there's no way that I'll be able to ever retrieve that. That poor little drone is gone and kaput. Now I have my third little Hubsan 107C that I still use to work on speed, precision, navigation. I'm not getting into too much problems. It's almost second nature, but not quite there. But now I'm ready for the big step. I had purchased a while back the Hubsan H109S Pro, which is a much larger drone. Has a very good camera. It's not quite commercial, but it can get you there. But it does have additional technologies. It does have return home. It does have altitude hold, and it does have GPS hold. So some nice things, and it has a screen, a telemetry screen that is just it gives you a lot of information. And what that telemetry screen does, if you look at the top of the screen, it'll first on your screen, it's going to be on your left. That gives you the voltage for your quad. On the right is the voltage for your console. On the right hand side, if you drop down again, you'll see something like H plus whatever number. Well, I found out what that is. That's telling you from the nose of your craft, that's north. If you get to 0, that's north. But what I found, it doesn't quite. Sometimes it goes 359 degrees, 4 degrees. It plays around, but in that ballpark, your nose is heading in the northerly direction. And I've also, for now, when I get more experience, I'll change my orientation of my launch pad. But for now, I orient that to north as well. the beauty of it is if you work that way, especially like me, a newbie, like for those of you who have experience, I mean, unless you want to be entertained and watch this video, go ahead. But you're not the intended audience. The intended audience are people who are just starting out, don't have much experience, and I'm trying to show my experience as a newbie and what I'm going through, the stages that I'm going through as I'm learning this here. Now, if I can only remember where I left off at. That happens to the best of us, I guess. Anyway, yes, back to the console. So you get that h plus 2, plus whatever figure. That's your direction. The reciprocal is 180. So if you're looking at your console and you're seeing, it's showing 120, that means the nose of your plane is coming back towards you. That's if it's ahead of you. Of course, if it's behind you, it means it's going away from you, so you've got to flip it around and go to 0 to bring it back. So those are all the kind of little things that you have to keep in mind. Also in the console, there's a pitch, tells you what the pitch, what the roll is. At the bottom, just before we get to the bottom, the next one, it tells you how far away the drone is from you. And then you have another reading that tells you your altitude and your speed, and your speed is given in meters per second. When you think scientific, that makes a lot of sense. The lower bar is your longitude, latitude. So there's a lot of information that's on that monitor, but when you're just starting to learn this here, that's a lot of information. It was like when I first started to drive these high-powered jet boats to take tours on, getting used to being able to read my clusters and tell me, follow what that cluster is telling me. Well, that's the same thing that I'm finding in the drone. You're at first-person view, yet you've got all this telemetry that you're trying to reconcile in your brain, and there seems to be a lot of activities going on, and that's why I take the slow approach to it. Now, today's is a landmark for me. Is that today is the first day that I've actually flown first-person view, and I traveled 250 meters towards the western horizon, and it was all done first-person view. It was kind of a little nerve-wracking, but again, the hard thing that that I was having was keeping orientation. But I knew the river was on this side of me, and the major highway was on that. So those were two reference points that I could use. I kept it at an altitude of 63 meters, which is about 200 and some feet, just to be sure that I wouldn't crash into trees, or if I had to do a quick respond and panic or do whatever, hit the return home so I wouldn't have any issues on colliding. Well, that went pretty smooth. So I went one direction, I turned it around, I come back the other direction, and I bypassed myself, and I went a little further up, and again, was looking at my FPD, but then I started to lose my orientation. And anyway, so I couldn't figure it out. I dropped my camera down, and for some reason I just couldn't recognize any of the landmarks. I could recognize one, but once I shift around, I didn't know if I was 90 degrees one way or the other, and I couldn't see myself back the other way. That was through first-person view. So what I did is I hit the return home and let it take it, and it worked right. The husband H109S Pro X4 worked beautifully on the return home. It come right back, and it almost landed on the my immediate pad. But being, the way that I am, I landed it for a few seconds, and I sat and thought it out, and I said, I'm not going to be beat. I relaunched it, went back to the same place, and this time here, I was concentrating. I was paying more attention to the landmarks. Is at 200 feet. I mean, landmarks look a lot more different than what they do, when you're in a car or something like that. But anyway, I kept that in my mind, and anyway, and I looked at my compass this time here and looked at the bearings on my compass, and I was able to turn it around, first-person view, bring it back towards me, and bring it down for a successful landing, and I was impressed. So the upcoming video is an account of this experience. Boys, I like the sound of that power. What I am doing right now is that I'm testing out the equipment, doing a port side yaw, just to make sure that everything works before I take my journey up Ross Terrace. I think it's about a quarter mile or close. It's 223 feet, and this is my first FPV that I'm actually doing, the first time that I'll have it out of sight. So now I'm ascending, and I think I started out at about 30, and got again a feel for it. Like, this is new equipment, and remember, I'm a beginner, so I'm taking every cautious there is. So I've reached my maximum height. I'm now doing another port side yaw, and I'm going to line myself up with the street to use as a reference point, so I can navigate and not lose myself. Of course, that's the beautiful St. John River that you see going downstream, and so we're boogieing on down Ross Terrace. Again, I'm double checking, that everything's working, and I'm trying to get myself kind of moved over the street rather than over the houses, and I think that's what I've done. I should be just on the edge. Yeah, now we're just passing Ramey Street, and so we're pretty well at the end of Ross Terrace. I think that's Ramey Street. The other street was Watson. I get the two of them mixed up, and I do a complete 360, and it was a beautiful night for doing this. All the way. The wind was very, very low. I think it was at around 3 or 4 knots. There wasn't much speed, so it was a comfortable. So now what we're looking at during, this is a week after the flood. A week ago, that was all water that you'd seen there. Those buildings in the background were completely underwater. Now we're passing Quinn Street. That's where I started from. Yes, like I say, a couple weeks ago, that was all water. We got through this flood. This flood was unusual because it hung around longer. Usually it's a couple of days and it go down, but this one here hung around for almost 2 weeks. So I'm going a little further, and I'm past Ross Terrace. I'm almost over Green Village. And as you can see, Ross Terrace to the right. Now, I'm trying to synchronize myself because I've lost my direction. Of course, my camera looks backwards, so that kind of threw a monkey wrench in things as far as orientating myself. And anyway, just kind of looking around to try to get. So I ended up doing another look, and for some reason I can't recognize anything. The pressure of being under control. Well, I just had, I'll just hit the return home button, not way there. I'll get it back. So here it is, going backwards down Ross Terrace, and in a few moments we should be at Mason's field, and I wish to thank Mr. Mason for allowing me to use his fields to do a lot of my testing. There it is. But it's interesting, even in the large craft, when you're learning it. Again, it's the question of orientation and how to do it effectively, and also finding several ways of being able to orient yourself when you lose your either first-person view or you just get confused. After this video, I did find another technique to help orientate myself. Right now I'm flying over Riverside Drive. That's the main highway. That highway there will take you actually to Moncton, and making a starboard turn there. And I don't know if I'm bringing it down at this time here. Again, I try to the best of my abilities, avoid from going over top of houses, but even with line of sight, it's sometimes hard to judge whether one is over, a person's house. Safety, is the utmost in all this here. And even like the height that I'm using, that I used, I think was 63 meters. That's where I tend to play around. That's my safe zone for now. I mean, I push it up a little higher, but that's just on doing a column and back down again. As far as doing a first-person flight, I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. But the craft is responding very, very well. I'm pleased with it, because it only has one gimbal. Of course, that's a disadvantage because it makes the videos a little shaky as much as I try to control for it and edit it. The real bad shakiness, and that, what a place to do a dive from. Could you just imagine, just yahoo, do a belly flop? That would excite people. That would be that would definitely make the news. And that so compared to other videos, you'll see that you can see that I'm moving the craft a lot faster than what I have in the past. Is that I'm getting it into comfort zones, and like I say, I set up some ground rules before I even start my flight. I pre-think out how high I'm going to go, what exactly I'm going to be doing. In this case here, it was testing, and I do keep a logbook on hand, so I have record, to look back onto, and if there is any issues that ever happens. Now, what happened here was, you remember earlier I had gone up to this place and lost orientation and had to use the return home. Well, this time here I paid attention to my orientation, and as you can see, I'm heading back. So when you fail the first time, you try to figure out what went wrong, and then you put a theory on how you can correct it, and you correct it. So now I'm pretty well over my landing spot. I should be descending if I'm thinking, or unless I've got some other idea to play around with. You can see now there's a little bit of wind blowing there. The trees are starting to move. And again, I'm playing around with orientation. And like, I'm doing this all first person view. I'm not using a line of sight. The last weeks and the week before, that's what I was doing, was flying line of sight. Learning how to fly line of sight, I think, is the first way you should learn anyway, because there'll be sometimes that the first person view will fail, and Well, that was a successful flight. I left Quinn subdivision and I went easterly up Ross Terrace. approximately 283 feet, which was a record for me, and I was doing this first-person view. Meaning, you know, I wasn't looking at the craft to see where it was going. I was just following my screen, my monitor. And of course, I forget now if I did a port or starboard turn. Anyway, I turned it around and come back. I think I did a port side turn because we're coming up river, and I was on the other the other side of the houses. And anyway, that went pretty well flawless, except for that one spot there when I got past by myself and up towards Green Village. And of course, what happened there is that I lost orientation. I just couldn't figure out, you know, where I was. I dropped my camera down, and just for that moment of time, I just couldn't put it. And also, what fooled me is that I had set my camera so it was looking backwards. So it kind of played a number in my head, but you know, keeping my cool, I said, okay, no big problem. I'll just switch the return to home. The craft came back, it landed, and I sat and thought about it, and I redid the operation again, this time here paying close attention to the position of the camera and whatnot. No issue. Got there and back. Now the next videos I'm going to do, or I shouldn't say the next, specifically the next one, it's that I've been both a diver and a boat operator, and I've learned how to navigate using the compass. And on this particular Hubsan 109, I guess it's Hubsan H109S, it does show me north. And anyway, I've been playing a bit around it with it, and it's quite accurate. North is going away from you, and south is coming back towards you. That's if you have yourself pointed in that direction. So I may be doing a tutorial just strictly on plotting and compass work. You may never use it, but you may. So till next time, take care. This is Andre Faust.